Hello, this is Benjamin Fulford. A serious power struggle is going on, and it looks like we're all going to have to take action in order to make this thing happen. A couple of days ago, I phoned the press office of Prime Minister Carney of Canada to try to get an opportunity to present some Dragon family documents to the Canadian government. They have ignored me, and this is a serious insult to the Dragon family that will not go unanswered. So we are now demanding that Mark Carney meet me in person for a debate to discuss the future of Canada and this planet. I am hereby formally challenging him for power, because he was not elected as Prime Minister. He was selected. He was chosen by a bunch of Freemasons who then stole the election to create the result. But unfortunately, it looks like he is being blackmailed or for something, because he is not going along with the program we all decided on, which is to create a future planning agency. So you have been warned, and you know from your sources that this is real. These are real people, and they're not going to let this insult go unanswered. So we'll give you until September 11th to formally reply to us. And I think that September 11th date is a good date for a lot of people to make a lot of demands, to see if we can't use that as a new date to throw things overboard. Speaking about which, we now need to talk about U.S. President Donald Trump. It shows Trump with Melania, and it does look like the real Melania, and he's saying, hey, I'm not going anywhere, which is fine and good, but it's still clear that this one, even though they're sitting beside each other, he's shorter than Melania. So what it looks like has happened is the white hats have taken the Trump avatar, the short fat one, and are starting to use it for their own purposes. And we can see that with the comment they posted about Operation Warp Speed, where basically they're saying, well, we thought we were trying to protect everybody, but if it turns out we were lied to, we're not going to cover that up anymore. So they're covering their own asses while at the same time, and that's a good sign that this new Trump, or this old Trump reading a new script with Melania at his side, is a sign the white hats are back in control. But to confirm, this is not the original 6'3", 190 centimeter Trump. Take a look at the video of this Trump standing beside the Polish President Rocky. Pardon me if I didn't pronounce that right. Now Rocky is 5'10", and this Trump is clearly about the same height. So it still looks like the American people have lost their president, and a group is trying to keep the pretense of him being alive, because there's so much money and power involved in having that presidential signature that can authorize all these funds. And that's what I think you'll see is going on with all these tech people gathering in the White House, pledging huge amounts of money. They're saying we're going to relaunder all this Fed funny money in the United States, basically. But take a look at the clip, and you'll see what I mean. You know, the West is going through a lot of trouble, but I think we really are going to see some kind of revolution in Western Europe this fall. Now, I think the situation in Germany is going to be especially interesting, because the opposition AfD is almost certainly going to win the next election, and there's a lot of pressure to hold an election soon. It's right, left, and center, I believe more than 16, but they're not going to be able to understand what sort of mind shift is happening in Germany. Please take a look at this clip of an ad put out by the AfD. I don't think, I know from their comments and their other things, they're not racist per se, but what they are saying is the elites have deliberately flooded our country with military-age, non-Christian men who appear to be getting a salary from somewhere and who are causing a huge, jump in crime rates, and a lot of them are welfare bums who are bankrupting the country. And that's something that needs to be said. You can't just pretend this stuff isn't happening because you're going to be called racist. This is nothing about racist. This is about people behaving the way they're supposed to or not behaving the way they're supposed to. And when you have a bunch of antisocial people who come into your country and causing crimes, my advice to the Germans is that with very few exceptions, most immigrants who are now on welfare should be asked to get a job or leave. That's what I would do. Then you can get the useful ones and get rid of the criminal trash that came along with them. In any case, there's also going to be something happening in the UK for sure, because it turns out they arrested 12,000 people in the UK in 2023 for things they wrote online. This is not the England of the Magna Carta, where your leaders can arrest you for no good reason whatsoever. This is something very serious, and we know that Keir Starmer is one of the blackmailed pedophiles from Epstein Island, and that is not going to go away. He's going to be removed. Same with Merz in Germany. He's going to be removed. And well, Mark Carney, I think your time is running out. Our patience is running out, and we're going to out you as a criminal who got placed by a stolen election unless you move out. But in France too, we're getting calls from French intelligence saying, please do not have Emmanuel, a puppet reading a script. He holds the presidential authority, which gives the white hats an opportunity to use him to make serious changes in France. So they want to keep him there as an image so that they can carry out the constitutional changes they need to fix the problems France now has. So we're leaving it up to them. But we'd like to hear from the people who have this new Trump reading his script. We'd like to talk to them. But I think they should understand that Western leadership right now is in serious trouble. What are they saying? What are they telling our people? They're saying, Iran's going to threaten us, so we have to start a war with them. Or Venezuela, we got to have a war with them. Or this is a horrible... stuff like that. They're not saying what kind of future do we want, what kind of world do we want to live in. And I think it was a deliberate hot mic moment that I believe billions of people have seen. You probably already seen it too, but I think you should watch this clip of Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping talking about immortality. That is exactly what we have been talking about. If we can take control of the financial system away from this satanic, the funds necessary to make immortality a reality and turn this planet into heaven on earth. That's what we're trying to do. But if they continue to stand in the way, they will learn the lesson that was learned by the king of Khwarezm when he was rude to Genghis Khan's emissaries. The results of refusal of this generous offer will be catastrophic. Well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Edmund, we have our first question for today. We are seeing massive Eat the Rich style riots in Indonesia, and it looks like soon to be the Philippines as well. Are these corrupt individuals in Indonesia part of the KM or just regular corrupt individuals?
What I've been told is that the KM is trying to organize attacks against the Chinese as a part of a fight of Chinese-U.S. influence over Indonesia. But it is funded from overseas, but they try to take real problems that exist and use them as a lever to start regime change. But it does look like, well, my sources who are actually in Indonesia tell me it is a foreign-funded attempt to overthrow the current Indonesian regime, and the Chinese appear to be the target of most of the attacks. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Could you comment on the renewed likelihood of World War III? Today's news.
Well, we're dealing with an elite and they still have some weapons. So I wouldn't call it World War III. I'd call it more of a hostage situation, where we got to get these people to stand aside from their weapons of mass destruction and hand over power without destroying the planet. So that's why it's taking so long, but that's the real problem. However, I assure you that at the highest level, the militaries of the U.S., North Korea, Russia, China, they all agree that we're not going to be fooled into starting all-out thermonuclear war and destroying the planet. That's not going to happen this time. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Who do you think these Satanists are? Do you think they're human? Do you really think a few hundred Satanists are controlling the world? Wouldn't they need thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of low-level people?
My understanding is that there's about 1 million of them, and a lot of them are concentrated in high levels of power, which is why it's taking so long. Now, they themselves, of course, they say that our God is Lucifer, it's not Satan, and that Lucifer is actually the good guy, and God's the bad guy, and all sorts of stuff like that. But the problem is, it is a network that has used bribery and lies to seize power over civilian governments in the West. Uh, and now you cannot become a president or a prime minister unless they have a videotape of you raping a little boy or strangling a little girl. And that's why we need to remove all the leaders to put an end to this system. But yeah, years of fighting these people and talks with Japanese military intelligence and other sources say there's about 1 million of them. So there's 16 million Jews or so. A lot of them pretend to be Jews, but just to make it clear, this is not a Jewish problem, but these are the ancient enemies of the Jews, and there's a lot of them, and they're very powerful, and we should not underestimate them, but we will remove them from power. Okay, next question.
Hi, Ben. In a recent interview, the CEO of Palantir, Dr. Alex Carl, said, and I quote, "I hate the enemies of Palantir. I'm going to fuck these people." Is this guy referring to the human race? Because in my opinion, the enemy of Palantir is the human race.
Well, the enemy is sheeple who will not obey their technocratic rule, I think is the answer. My advice for what the average person can do is, sometimes just leave your cell phone at home, take out some cash, and go shopping that way. Stuff like that are little things you can do to help overthrow these people. You don't have to be a hero to do stuff like that, but what we don't want is to let them outlaw cash and put us forever in a digital prison. Next question.
Ben, we have our last question for today. You touched on this a little bit, but when will Europe return to free speech? People are being arrested for hurting people's feelings on social media. This is ridiculous. When will Europe return to the free speech it had before? Furthermore, in Canada, Chief McSween of Ontario York's regional police said in regards to illegals perpetuating home invasions, quote, "We should hide and comply. In other words, don't fight back." This was right after a home invasion and a father shot. What kind of dystopian nightmare are we living in, and how long can we expect this to last?
Well, hopefully not much longer. I have some stuff I'm going to write about this Ford character in my next report, but he's definitely a cabal implant. Overall, I think the fight is reaching its final push, but we all need to personally take action at this point to remove them, because they have people who need to be removed visibly and publicly are Bill Gates, Gavin Newsom, House Speaker Johnson, all the Clintons, the heads of the big tech corporations, the heads of the big, we need to firmly take away their control of the magic money machine and the corporations and return that to the people and the real entrepreneurs who actually build value. That's what we're going to do. And we all need to take the fight to them. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself.
Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jacob with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. So the war against the cartels is on. This cartel war is in the United States as well. We're seeing the deportation of the worst offenders that they've tracked down. This is happening in multiple states. It will start to happen on an even greater scale in upcoming days and weeks. We're probably going to see Chicago pretty much have National Guard come in there. They can utilize the naval yard that's in Great Lakes to basically work from. It sounds like that's what they're going to do. But they'll come into Chicago and they'll start working on the gangs, right? And the gangs tied in. So the gangs aren't just separate. The people that have come in here that are illegal aliens aren't, in and of themselves separate from any of this. They are tied into massive corruption within the deep state in the political realm, as we're seeing with the governor Pritzker in Chicago, in Illinois, in Chicago itself. You're seeing the mayor basically railing against troops coming in to help them with their incredible crime that's happening there. They don't want them there because they're basically going to expose all the corruption. Now we're seeing up to 600 lawyers from the Department of Defense that are going to start to go to different cities. Probably one of those will be Chicago because they have corruption within the Department of Justice and so forth. We've had judges that were supposed to be getting these illegals out. They're dragging their feet. They're basically resigning on purpose to slow the process down. So they're part of the corruption as well. So President Trump is firing a bunch of those people, and he's bringing in the military. Now the military, once these guys come in, that basically sets the stage for, I believe, the next round, which will be pretty much military tribunals, right? And they will probably be judging people like Pritzker, the mayor of there in Chicago, and many, many more, right? So that's one of the things they're going to fight. We're seeing Venezuela. We just had a boat that was bringing in illegal contraband, drugs, and so forth. The military basically did a drone strike on it and blew it to hell, right? Killed all 11 people that were on it, and the boat itself, 4-engine speedboat. They can go up to like 60 knots an hour. Now, when I was into SEAL teams, SEAL Team 6, we had boats that were a lot faster than that. But I can tell you, those speedboats are something, right? They can scoot. And they're low key, they're low level. They've been doing a lot of these drug runs for a long time, right? So they've been tracked. They're going to start eliminating them. So we're getting the illegals out that are part of the drug cartels. We're starting to hit the drug cartels in Venezuela and in Mexico. We've just had, talks with Claudia Sheinbaum. Marco Rubio was down there talking with her, and he said that it went well. Now we know that she's controlled by the drug cartels, but it seems like maybe we're going to start to see some give and take, right? Some of these people that are down there that have been, controlled by them for a long time, they had no choice. So now that they have a choice, they may start to lean in the right direction. So we'll see how that works out. Claudia Sheinbaum, will she survive? Will a lot of these, like Maduro in Venezuela, will he survive? Probably not, right? If he does survive, he's going to be in prison somewhere in the United States, hauled away like a criminal he is, right? So we're going to see more of this going forward. Now, National Guard to deploy 1,700 troops. We've heard this across 19 states to assist in immigration crackdown. So they're there to help the Department of Homeland Security, and President Trump is, going to help them out. So which states are they going to? I'm gonna put it up on the screen, but we're seeing Alabama, Arkansas, lots of states. As you guys can see right here, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Mexico, Ohio, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, and Wyoming. Or is it one of your states where you're at? A lot of Republican states, but yeah, there's New Mexico is not a Republican state. So you're seeing, but like I said a while ago, she seems like she wants to work with President Trump and his team because things are so bad in New Mexico with the drug cartels and so forth. So we'll probably see a few states that are Democrat leaning that will start to move over into the right column, right? I don't know how much, but at least some of them. So New Mexico is one of them. Will Colorado be one of them? It remains to be seen. That's going to be a tough one because it's very corrupt there in Colorado with the Democrats. All right, so 1,719 states. I mean, how many people is that? That's like, if you divvy them up evenly, that's less than 90 soldiers per state. So are they going to go in there and start kicking ass? No. Just like those 600 lawyers that are going to be divvied up to the different states, they're part of a bigger program that's coming, guys. You will see at some point special forces involved in this. I think they've already been involved in this, but you will see them get credit for some of this. The Army, the Navy, Air Force, Marines, Special Forces, all will be involved, in my opinion, on a massive scale going forward, because the corruption, like we all know, is on an absolutely massive scale in every single state, in every single city in our country. So it's going to be a lot of effort to overcome a lot of this. It's not going to be easy. There'll be a lot of pushback from the Democrats. There already is a lot of pushback. They're going to have they're going to come out with their, protest, which will eventually, like we saw with George Floyd, turn into riots. This is the start of the cartels coming in and starting to get involved in those riots and causing mayhem on a massive scale. And then on top of that, we have terrorist cells on top of the cartels. Now, the terrorist cells and the cartels are in bed together, all right? Before I left the SEAL teams in 2021, 2002, 2002, long time ago, we were already seeing that in South America, the cartels were being they were getting terrorists, Hamas and so forth, that were coming in and starting to infiltrate and integrate into the cartels. So that has happened into America, because we know that the Democrat Party basically allowed that over the last 4 years. All right. So we have a lot of work to do. We're going to see a lot of destruction in the big cities. Been talking about this for years. It's coming. Now, what is very good about this, on a positive note, is that President Trump is taking it to the source. All right. So Venezuela and Maduro will go down. Mexican cartels will go down. In the broader spectrum, of taking them down in the United States as well. So it's a large operation that will involve these different countries and so forth. And so we're looking at the beginning stages of the setup of this larger war that's coming. Right? It's going kinetic. So it's been a lot of irregular warfare with guys like me and other people that have been providing you with information. So at some point, there has to be a kinetic activity, and we've seen that now. And we're going to see more of that. Of course, none of us wants that kinetic activity. We would rather this be, settled peacefully. Cartels stop pushing drugs into America, or else. That's been tried before, of course, and they haven't stopped, right? So they just got one of their high-speed speedboats, probably $1 million plus boat with 11 people on it, blown to hell, right? Loaded with drugs that would have probably brought in tens and tens of millions of dollars, if not more, and it's sitting on the bottom of the Gulf of America now, right? So we're going to see this pick up, all right? So the war of words on both sides is picking up. The war of words in Venezuela from Maduro, which is basically, amping his people up. You'll go out and protest America or else type thing, probably. And old people coming out, it's like, I'm ready to fight. Yeah, right. Yeah, you were told to get out there. You're probably somebody's family, and they said go out there and make it for the cameras, right? So this is going to continue. This war of words, this irregular warfare, and until it really starts to peak into kinetic activity. All right, and so in the States, you will see the first test case will be Chicago. Eventually, it will be New York. LA is already ongoing. It's working as well as it is, right? Now, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, you name it, big city that's corrupt from, drug trafficking, political, and so forth. There's going to be military come into those cities and into those states, right? They're going to resist. The people are going to be amped up to resist. And that's why this irregular warfare has been very important over the last several years, to basically clue everybody up just how evil, just how corrupt this deep state and how embedded this is in a lot of these governments, right? Not only the governments, of course, but in the school system, in the big pharma. All of these things are being exposed. So it's a multifaceted takedown of the deep state system. They will resist. Their minions will resist. Their irregular warfare, war of words from the likes of Gavin Newsom, Kathy Hochul in New York, and of course now in the upcoming conflict that's coming in Chicago with Pritzker and their mayor, the mayor of Chicago. And we will see this play out, how it plays out. How much resistance is there going to be? We've heard a lot from the people there that they want the military to come in and clean up their cities. So how far has that gone? How many people are ready to move to the right side of this? How many people will play because the Democrats have taken care of them for generations, all right? How many of them will side with the Democrat, the evil Democrats, and push back and maybe even get physical, right? They will be the lower stages of it. Now, within those groups, there will be people that will be fomenting these protests. And then eventually, so a lot of these people are paid, of course. And then, of course, within there will be, some violence, flag burning That's one of the things that President Trump got on top of. Executive order saying no more flag burning or you're going to go to jail. This is always part of their rioting. So when the flag burning starts, then it starts to get riot level, right? So they know that. They've seen this over time. They've seen the process. They've been observing these groups for a long time now, all the way back to Floyd, all right? And they know how to take them down. And so the takedowns are going to happen with the leadership within those groups. Some of those people will be deported that are part of those groups, of course. And then those people that are violence instigators will be held accountable, will be locked up, hopefully for the rest of their lives, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see how that works out. There's a lot to look at. So Pentagon authorizes, like I said, up to 600 military lawyers to serve as temporary immigration judges. Of course, that's going to move into, basically military tribunals, guys, right? It's very easy to see that this is the steps towards that. And this won't be down in Guantanamo. This will be in cities that go into rampage mode, that have rioting from the citizens, that are coerced and pushed to do that. You'll see that with, like I said, the cartel members that are within there, maybe even some of the people from China. So, and then of course the terrorists that have been coming in. So remember, the terrorists have been for over 25 years now part of going into the cartels, the terrorists from the Middle East. All right. So we're going. That's going to be proven. Now I'm talking about that. It's not. I'm not outside of my. I'm not revealing anything secret. It used to be, but I've been watching this being talked about. Leaders within South American countries coming from Hamas families. How does a South American country get someone that comes from Palestine and becomes part of their leadership, political leadership? See, these things are not new. It's been ongoing. So it's been revealed for a long time, but now it's coming to a head. So, like I said, the military is sending groups of 150 attorneys, both military and civilians. So probably some of these civilian attorneys that will become judges, just like somebody that's hired, contractor type, to come in and do this. We're going to see maybe some of these people are just like during World War, will be promoted. They'll be read into the military. Ominous. You're now a captain in the Army, and you're going to be a lawyer, and then we're going to upgrade you to an attorney, right? So this is as soon as practicable. So this is moving on a very fast pace. First round of people identified by next week, it said. So we're in that window of when this first 150 attorneys to be lawyers are starting to move out, right? And where did this happen? The effort comes as Trump administration's more regularly turns to the military as it cracks down on illegal immigration. It's not just illegal immigration. So remember, there's terrorists, there's cartel. It's just not like these podunk people that have come across the border that just wanted to get a free food and places to live and free everything the Democrats threw at them. No, there's that, of course. That's a cover. But then mixed among them are the terrorist cartel members and so on. So those are the ones that have been targeted first, right? Eventually, they're going to get them all, right? So they're ramping up their arrest and the deportations. Troops patrolling the U.S. There's growing role in the push includes troops patrolling U.S.-Mexico border. 10,000 troops on the U.S.-Mexican border, right? Going all the way from California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, the entire border, right? We have troops down there, military aircraft. There's housing people on military bases. Now, during the corrupt Biden years, they were bringing in these illegal aliens and housing them on military bases and then distributing them into our cities. Now that process is being reversed. So corruption from the Democrats, the deep state. Democrats are deep state, period. All right. Democrat Party has to go away. All right. And as this continues, we'll find the rhinos, right? We'll find the rhinos, the Republican in name only, and we'll get rid of them as well, guys. All right. So this process, it will continue. Some of those people will probably be part of military tribunals. All right. So there's a massive backlog of roughly 3.5 million cases that's ballooned in recent years. Of course, President Trump and his group is pushing this to happen at a very fast pace. So at the same time, more than 100 immigration judges have been fired or left voluntarily to disrupt the system. This was part of always part of it. So President Trump and team have figured out how to overcome that, and that's by bringing these lawyers, DOD, and civilian contractors that will be upgraded, and they will become judges. So it's moving very quickly and very effectively, and it's obviously well thought out ahead of time, and it's moving quite perfectly. Now, U.S. troops are stationed across the southern border, like I talked about, with notable presence in Yuma, Arizona. There's a big base there. Navy SEALs. We have a free fall place there. I think maybe there's some sniper groups that train in Yuma. So all of these places, military bases along the border, are going to be utilized for eventually, I think, moving into Mexico up to 20 miles or so to take out the cartels. So the cartels are, along our border. Where do they make the money? They make the border in the United States, and their tunnels and so forth. Tunnels are being taken down and maybe even utilized to invade them in the future, right? So we're not against the Mexican people, we're against the cartels. But again, how much of these cartels, like the Democrat Party, have coerced their populations into becoming part of their groups, and they will help resist? I don't know. We will find out. All right. So logistics and headquarters at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Like I said, Yuma, New Mexico National Defense Area, Texas National Defense Area. So bases in probably both of those. Other ones, joint training bases in San Diego, California, McAllen, Texas. They're all involved in detection, monitoring, logistics, and transportation support. So they're not actively doing the Border Patrol's work, but they're assisting. So there's support for the Border Patrol, engineering and logistics, putting up fencing, barbed wire, surveillance devices, monitoring, drones, and so forth. Detention, if they're in an area where illegals are coming over, they'll be part of detaining them until they can hand them over to Border Patrol, right? So lots of things are happening, right? So this has been a multi-month setup. Of course, they've been planning this for years. And now we're moving into the implementation, the kinetic side of this. So the U.S. Northern Command, DoD support to U.S. border security, Department of Defense, has a long history of supporting efforts to secure U.S. border since early 1990s. Of course, it's moving into another stage of it. Will there be more troops that will be stationed down along the border? I think so. Now, I think around the world, a lot of the troops around the world that have been positioned out there by the deep state, they're being brought back. Not all of them, but many of them are being brought back, right? They're going to be part of winning against the cartels and the deep state. So as you see here, a lot of these people that are there are support guys. They're not war fighters, right? You put the Marines down there. Of course, they have to have, people to cook the food, that work the computers, to pay them, medical, if they get hurt, get an hourly or something. So you have a lot of that support. So normally it's only about 10% or less that are actually war fighters. Everybody else, so you're seeing 10,000 down there, probably only about 1,500 to 2,000, maybe a little bit more, that are actually involved or war fighters that can actually pull triggers and so forth and get out there and potentially do that, right? So we're definitely going to see a lot more service members start to slowly move down along the border into these bases, probably surreptitiously, and then eventually it will be game on, crossing the border, right? And taking down the cartels on a kinetic level. Of course, there'll be cartels have their drones and their machine guns and all stuff they got from Afghanistan, thanks to the Democrat Party and Joe Biden, that have been shipped out there. But they're going against the most powerful military in the world. They're going to lose, and they're going to lose substantially, right? So maybe they'll put up a fight like Maduro is talking tough. I remember a lot of tough talkers for a long time. When we went down to Panama, Noriega was a tough talker, and he was running the first night for his life, right? We finally found him hiding in a church, Catholic church, right? So the rest of his boys put up a fight without him. They were decimated very quickly, right? So the first night it was over. After that, it was just mopping up in Panama, right? So we went down there during the Reagan time frames, and we just it was done. So I was there months before that, same thing, getting everything ready, finding where the targets were, all the things we needed to do, and then we implemented it. So we've done the same thing throughout the world, but the deep state comes in and pulls back the reins and hampers everything so that these wars last. This is not that time, guys. When we go and we knock hell out of these people, it's going to be done very quickly, very effectively, and God help those idiots that resist and put up a fight, right? They're going to need it because they're probably going to hell, all of them, right? Mexico emphasizes sovereignty, good ties during Rubio visit. So Marco went down there, says U.S.-Mexico cooperation closer than ever. All right, is this just, posturing? Is that real? Is it more irregular warfare? Remains to be seen. Trip comes after U.S. military attacked vessel from Venezuela. All right, like I've been talking about. So basically showing them, hey, we're serious here. Don't make us do this to you too. All right. So Mexico stresses sovereignty concerns in drug fight. So again, my thoughts that we will go into Mexico. We're not going to seize Mexico. We're going to do business like we have for a long time, for 100 years or more. Everybody loves Mexico. We love the Mexican people, absolutely. It's nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with the cartels, right? And the cartels are going to lose, and they're going to lose horribly. Right? And I think the Mexican people are going to be very happy about that. But the Mexican cartels, it's 5:55 here. So the Mexican cartels basically have come in and done away with the corruption of the Mexican government, right? And so I've been down to Mexico. It's very well run in a lot of places. And a lot of them say that's because of cartels. They make money off of tourists. And so they want everything to be good. And they don't put up with any bullshit. So how does that get flipped? Does the Mexican government come in and do that work, or do they go corruption again? Because we know, I know, because I've been going down to Mexico for 50 years, that it's been very corrupt down there in Mexico, right? So the drug cartels have cleaned a lot of stuff up, even though, you know, they're very vicious. And so I don't know. I don't know how this gets fixed. We shall see. So it talks about onward to Ecuador. Washington's top diplomat will travel from Mexico City to Ecuador in his latest trip to the region. Rubio, the first Latino U.S. Secretary of State, traveled to countries in Central America and the Caribbean during his first overseas trip after taking office, as administration sought to shift back focus to Latin America. So this is a good thing. We're moving in the right direction. Rubio, I think, has like 5 different hats he's wearing right now. He wears them all well. At some point, I guess somebody's gonna take a little bit of pressure off him, but it remains to be seen until they get the right people, guys. So let's look at some of this that's going down with Venezuela, what that looks like.
States is sending 3 naval destroyers to Venezuela, while the country's despotic leader, Nicolas Maduro, dispatches millions of militia members throughout his country.
That's right. Venezuela's leader has decided to dig in and raise an army he says can stop any U.S. military force. But as 4,000 Marines and state-of-the-art destroyers begin operations in Venezuelan waters, critics wonder what effect, if any, a homegrown militia of untrained volunteers would have against the world's greatest military. Unless, of course, this militia has been built with a much different, darker purpose in mind.
The U.S. Navy reportedly sending at least 7 vessels, including 3 guided missile destroyers, to the waters off Venezuela.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro issues a warning to the United States that an attack against him could be, quote, the beginning of the end of the American empire. Maduro made his remarks without offering further details on exactly what he meant.
Venezuela is not controlled by a government. It's actually been taken over by the Cartel de los Soles, which is a terrorist organization.
We have to take any enemy.
All right, so there you go. We knew this in the military a quarter century ago that this was going on. The cartels were basically taken over by the terrorist groups from the Middle East, and I think that the Chinese have also moved in and have their influence in there as well. So it's a little mix mash. That's why I'm saying it's a possibility that we may see Chinese military age males have probably been trained to, cause problems, become activated. So it's going to be very interesting going forward how this works out. Of course, like I said, our military, U.S. military, has the might to basically crush everything within a day. And from that point on, it is a mop-up plan. So I'm sure that they have targets already. Some of these targets you're going to start to see have been hit. Land targets, drone strikes, and so forth are already happening.
Seriously, we cannot dismiss any threat they may come up with.
Volunteers as old as 75 turned up to enlist, even those with trouble hearing. That shows the level of some Venezuelans' enthusiasm to join the militia.
All three vessels.
Yep, we'll see what level of the deep state here in the United States, in Chicago, how many people are going to get involved, guys, and who will do it. We have communists here in the United States that are just chomping at the bit. Some of these old timers in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, long-term communists here in the United States are probably going to be all over the place, guys. They'll be out in front. It's probably, you can't believe this, but I've already seen these guys. I've seen them in Florida. I saw them in some of these videos out there where in Portland and so forth, where they're out there disrupting. They're old communists, right? So this is like something they've been waiting for their whole lives. You're going to see a lot of people get involved in this. It's going to be it's going to get cray-cray.
Are Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. They each carry dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles able to hit targets on land and at sea.
Whether the cartel in Venezuela decides to close shop and move out of there, or they decide to try to confront President Trump, it's up to them. But I will tell you, just ask the Sinaloa cartel or ask ISIS if it's a good idea to confront President Trump. And I think the answer is pretty obvious.
Yep, the answer is very obvious, right? But like we've seen in the past, the deep state would come in and start to integrate and keep these wars going forever. Do you really think that's going to happen with President Trump and the White Hats? It's not going to happen, guys. All right. So I've been involved, and like I keep saying, down in Panama, it was over, right? Very quickly. Noriega had his machete out there, and he's like, "Come on, let's go, America. You're gonna find out," right? We've seen this. We saw that with Noriega, the mother of all wars. It was over within weeks. So it's basically going to be the same thing when we hit these people. It's going to be over, but will it be long-term over? That's where everything becomes a little cloudy, right? So who gets control? Who is the ones that come in and fix things? It's going to be very interesting, right? So why would we go down to some of these countries? What do we have to gain? What is down there for America? And we're going to talk about that. So President Trump is all about trade, art of the deal. So all around the world, if everyone had the money that would make them happy, why would they, right? Where we have to look at the trade situation, and I know that that's part of what's been looked at. That hasn't been looked at before because the deep state came in to basically steal everything, so that the people, when we came into these countries, got food more. Probably some leaders and so forth were able to get power because they promised people that they would give more back to them, like communism does, right? But we know that communism does not work, and usually the ones that are claiming communism, like Democrats, are the ones that are going to make out while everybody else becomes their slaves, right? Of course, the Democrat Party is the party of slavery all the way back to the Civil War. So they're masters at slavery, and everyone that supports the Democrats right now, you're supporting slave masters, right? And worse, because they want to destroy America so that they can, continue to live high on the hog like Nancy Pelosi, right? And Elon, what's the one in Michigan? Can't think of her name. She's from Somalia. She's got she went from, I guess, from last year to this year, she was like an air. Now she's all right. So corruption and theft from these Omar. Yeah, Ilhan Omar, is that her name? That's right. So it's exposure of all that. And so they're coming after that as well. And then, of course, you know, we just had a bunch of people that testified for the Epstein stuff. And so that's moving in a direction. Of course, they're going to infiltrate that and try and, you know, make Trump out to be a bad guy. So whatever. Julie, we are the slaves. No, I'm not a slave. I hope you're not. But I mean, if you allow the Democrat Party to make you a slave, yes. There's a lot of slavery out there when it comes to the Democrat Party, right? Like I said, they're masters at it. So let's look at some video of this boat being blasted.
U.S. from Venezuela with a boat full of drugs. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that the administration will wage combat against drug cartels wherever they are. Watch this.
Will you act on Venezuelan soil against the Maduro regime?
Well, this is a counter-drug operation. We're going to take on drug cartels wherever they are and wherever they're operating against the interests of the United States. The president's top obligation is to secure the national interest and the national security of our people. I know of no president that means that more than this one. Our president now, President Trump.
So it is, it's moving that direction. So you saw kinetic action right there. And what does that kinetic action look like? So let's break it down. So yes, it's good to see. It's good to have knowledge. It's good to understand what's going on, so you can talk this. And here's where it basically informs you how U.S. strike Venezuela cartels and drug boats.
How did the U.S. strike Venezuelan cartels using military assets from the sea, land, and air? The American Navy uses specialized amphibious landing craft that act almost like miniature aircraft carriers, launching drones that can later be armed with Hellfire missiles. These missiles, guided by semi-active lasers or millimeter wave radar, turn the drones into highly lethal weapons. This technology allows them to lock onto and track targets with extreme accuracy, even those moving at speeds of 100 miles per hour. Both the U.S. and Venezuela employ very different naval strategies. More details, all in the video ahead. How did the U.S. naval and aerial surveillance track the suspected drug boat for several weeks as part of an intensified anti-narcotics campaign in the Southern Caribbean? This surveillance effort combined multi-source intelligence with persistent drone monitoring to identify maritime activities linked to drug cartels. The vessel under observation was a 4-engine speedboat, a type specially designed for high-velocity trafficking operations. Such boats typically travel at speeds ranging from 40 to 60 knots.
Yes, and being on one of those in the middle of the ocean where it's like lightning and a storm, and you're heading to take down a cruise ship with terrorists on it, and training, it's pretty exciting, right? So these guys got a lot of excitement. They get blown to pieces. It's very exciting for their souls, all right, going to hell. All right, so we're going to see a lot more of these people going to hell, all right? It's going to happen on a massive level. These are very demonic, very evil people. They do human sacrifice. They rape little children. These people have no right to be in our world, right? So they will be taken out of our world on a massive scale going forward.
Approximately 46 to 69 miles per hour. This is around 74 to 111 kilometers per hour when traversing open water. Once the boat crossed from Venezuelan territorial waters into international waters, U.S. authorities positively identified it as part of a cartel-operated smuggling mission, believed to be managed by the notorious Venezuelan criminal organization Tren de Aragua. Execution of the strike. Let us now examine how the strike was executed in detail. The MQ-9 Reaper drone responsible for the operation was most likely deployed from an amphibious naval task force operating in the Southern Caribbean region. This task force included warships and Marines engaged in both exercises and active missions, from which MQ-9 drones routinely conduct surveillance and precision strike activities. These platforms provide the necessary launch and command capabilities for such unmanned aerial vehicles. The MQ-9 Reaper, an unmanned remotely piloted aircraft, tracked the high-speed speedboat from above, continuously transmitting high-definition video and sensor data back to command centers and strike coordinators on the ground or aboard naval vessels. The MQ-9 has a maximum operational ceiling of up to 50,000 feet and can loiter in the target area for up to 24 hours, affording it the endurance required to maintain precise real-time tracking of fast-moving maritime targets. After positive identification and receiving presidential authorization, the drone executed the strike by closing in on the boat. It launched a single AGM-114 Hellfire missile, a highly precise air-to-surface weapon capable of tracking and hitting fast and maneuvering targets with lethal accuracy.
Bye-bye baddies. All right, so this is the same techniques that we're using in the Middle East to take out terrorists. Took out a lot of terrorists, found a lot of terrorists, took them out. They're going bye-bye, right? And sometimes you want to have precision, and you want to have DNA. So you get SEAL Team 6 Bubbas to go in and do the strike, or in the case of who was that one terrorist that we took out, al-Baghdadi in just outside of Syria, or maybe it was in Syria, just after we had Nancy Pelosi go to Jordan for a meeting, and there's talk that she was communicating with al-Baghdadi, giving him some intel, and that's how they found him, through her communication. So she obviously has probably a military tribunal set up for her, if it hasn't already happened. So Delta went in and got al-Baghdadi. And you guys might remember there was talk about this dog, right? Dog man or something like that went in and, tracked him down. So there's a lot of stuff that you guys probably never learn about, but there, I'll just slip some of that in occasionally. So it'll make you do the research, and maybe you'll find some stuff out. All right. So U.S. Navy drops the hammer on Venezuela, like we saw. Cartel drug lab wiped off the map. So not only are the boats getting, targeted, but also the labs that create the nasty drugs that are killing Americans by the hundreds of thousands every year.
The U.S. has declared war on Venezuela, and they did not see it coming. Operating a drug lab can be lucrative, but when the U.S. is involved, it's a whole different story. Venezuela's most feared cartel gang, the Tren de Aragua, has been operating a successful drug lab, but judgment came in May.
All right, so you guys remember Tren de Aragua in Colorado, right? So remember them going into those apartment complexes, and you had, basically ICE tracked them down and started hammering them, and the politicians of Colorado didn't like that. Yeah. So those politicians of Colorado, the one that, don't like for election integrity, they're probably going to have a nice little military judge that resides over their court proceedings as well. So that's going to happen for, like I said, for a lot of these places. They will resist. Colorado, Denver, Crack Palace, and Denver, whatever. They're going to resist. Tren de Aragua, which is probably still in Colorado on a massive scale, they're gonna resist. So you're gonna see some pushback. But not only will we, figure out, their connection to, the drugs and so forth, we're going to see the money laundering that has been happening with mortgages. We're going to see the money laundering and control that money does as far as like buying up, politicians and making sure that they do what they want them to do. Even in South Carolina, where I'm from, they're talking about having new voting machines, spending $50 million on voting machines. Voting machines cannot go forward. So even in my former home state of South Carolina, there's massive corruption, like it never has been. Right. All right. So a lot of different states that at one time were good states, like South Carolina, have fallen to corruption. So we're going to see, and it happened to Georgia. They spent tens of millions of dollars, even after Texas told them, don't get those voting machines because they're corruptible. And they went ahead and bought them anyway. All right. So we know that the Georgia political, all the way at the top has been corrupted. And we're going to see a lot of that basically get turned around soon.
There's gang territory. You prepared for the consequences? Join us as we unveil how the and the cartel lab. Trump has made cracking down on drug cartels a central goal of his administration as part of a wider effort to limit migration and secure the U.S. southern border. In recent months, they have already deployed at least 2 warships to help in border security efforts and drug trafficking. A few months back, the administration designated Mexico's Sinaloa cartel and other drug gangs, as well as Venezuelan criminal group Tren de Aragua, as global terrorist organizations, showing just how serious they are in wiping cartels off the face of the earth. Not long after the terrorist designation, Donald Trump authorized the Pentagon to carry out military operations.
Right. We're going to resist to move forward. And it's very encouraging, right? So why do some of the stuff they do, right? Stop and bring up this. So the is involved in shaping in the future, right? For whatever reason, it's not sharing. There we go. It's slow moving. All right. So maybe the deep state doesn't like me sharing this stuff. All right, here we are. Force conducts first air, and you have a very high level officer that's talking about why we're getting involved and how that's going to affect us and those countries in trade negotiations. Have a reason for going in, and everything has to be paid for. All right. There has to be a reason for this. It's better for the United States to, trade for the United States to trade and not the deep state to trade in drugs and illegal activity. It's better to do this on the up and up and do it more effectively. So here you go.
To my number 2 adversary in the region, Russia. I mean, I've got of course, the countries, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua with Russia relationships. But why this region matters with all of its rich resources and rare earth elements. You've got the lithium triangle, which is needed for technology today. 60% of the world's lithium is in the lithium triangle, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile. You just have the largest oil reserves, light sweet crude discovered off of Guyana over a year ago. You have Venezuela's resources as well with oil, copper, gold. We have the Amazon, lungs of the world. We have 31% of the world's fresh water in this region too. I mean, it's just off the charts. We have a lot to do. This region matters.
All right, so it does matter. It matters to the deep state. It has mattered to the deep state. Let's not let them have it, all right? Let's do good trade relations with these countries. They will kick out the deep state. We will kick out the deep state for them. And then we'll have normalized trade relations with them. And that's the way this is going to work out, guys, all right? Trade throughout time, whether we go back to ancient Egyptian times. Egypt was a breadbasket of the world in its time, fed the entire Mediterranean. Of course, Egypt became very big, very powerful, but they weren't going out and killing everybody, right? They weren't deep staters. They just had the great agriculture, and then everybody else tried to come and take it from them. And then they built their army and kept themselves safe. So this is what we're going to see in the future. Basically, elimination of the deep state, no more wars, and good trading relationships around the world with everyone. Now, in the big cities, still has to be work done in the big cities. Not only Tren de Aragua, like we're going to see in New York, like I talked about in Denver, Colorado, but in many other states. These drug cartels and terrorists are all over America, guys. So, yes, there is a future, but we have to clean up before we get there. And it's going to be very challenging, but I have very, very great confidence that we're moving in the right direction. We're being proactive rather than reactive, which is very important. I've rarely seen the proactivity in my entire career of 35 years in the SEAL teams and in the CIA like I have now.
As a guy who spent 34 years deporting illegal aliens, I got a message to the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country in violation of federal law. You better start packing now.
So illegal immigrants in American sanctuary cities are on notice, especially in New York, where gangs like Tren de Aragua and MS-13 have taken over middle-class neighborhoods all over the place, throughout the city and state. And while ICE's shock and awe campaign is in full swing on America's West Coast, the war...
I see those guys like blew the door and just walked in. It's like that's not the way we move. But, you know, safety, I guess, they're doing a good job. They're trained to the level they're trained at. So we're seeing these guys, you know, really kicking back on these illegals, MS-13 and Tren de Aragua within their cities, New York. So we'll definitely see troops going into New York to basically combat them. There will be a battle. There will be a war against these, you know, cartels and terrorists that are in those big cities, especially New York. Now, the politicians, Kathy Hochul, and, you know, probably, so we're seeing Mamdani is probably going to be the mayor of New York, a communist, and probably has ties, if they start to look, Middle Eastern guy, probably ties to, you know, terrorism guys, right? Communism, terrorism, cartels. It's all the same thing. The communism comes in to basically enslave the local population. They run the drugs through there, make massive profits, do their money laundering through, like we've been pointing out for years now, through the mortgage fraud. They basically buy houses in a massive block for, you know, $100,000 a house. You know, they got like 100 homes, and then the cartels come in and they buy them up for $1 million plus a piece, right? So money laundering. And so they're making billions of dollars worth of money through the mortgage fraud. And this is the cartel linking going all the way down into, of course, Katie Hobbs, suspiciously, became, even though she didn't go out in politic, like we saw with Joe Biden, it's already chosen who's going to be there. And of course, she has supported the drug cartels through Maricopa County and so forth. So they do the money laundering through Maricopa, same thing, mortgage fraud and so forth. So we're seeing a lot of politicians, and we will see a lot more politicians and judges and so forth that are going to get busted on mortgage fraud, because that is one of their major sources of money laundering, and we have exposed it. All right, so quickly moving in the right direction. 400,000 illegals forcibly returned to Mexico and other countries. You guys might have caught where that 6.0 earthquake happened in Afghanistan near Jalalabad, and basically, little villages and so forth had a lot of death. And they said one of the problems was that a lot of people are being returned, and that causes more problems in these areas. Well, that's too bad, right? So, and I thought that was very interesting, where we're returning these people that got a free ride. Remember when Joe Biden was transporting all these Afghans, they brought them to U.S. bases, like I talked about, and then distributed them throughout the United States. Now they're being returned back to Afghanistan. So terrorists, some of them, all right? Jalalabad is a known area where there were a lot of terrorists, right? They used to come into Pakistan. That was bin Laden involved in all that stuff. So many terrorists that when I worked for the CIA in Pakistan, we took so many of them out, but they would often go across the border in Afghanistan when the heat was on. Now, when the heat comes on to these people that are in New York and so forth, they're going to have nowhere to run. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. So we're going to track them down. We'll eliminate the ones that are really bad, that resist, and the other ones we'll send them back to their countries, and they can, link up with Maduro, because he's building a great big army that's really going to kick America's butt. Just like Noriega, just like Saddam Hussein, just like all these other crazy people out there. I thought that they could go against the United States, right? So that's what's coming. It's going to be incredible what we're going to see over the next several months and years, right? Something that many of us thought we'd never see, me included, right? Especially me, right? Because I started to see the bigger picture of all this. Yep. Haven't heard too much from Gretchen Whitmer, right? So she's either been part now of the good guys, or she'll go down in her own tribunal, right? Maybe both. Who knows? All right. Lots of love. Stay in love vibration, and we'll see you guys next time. Well, it's a beautiful scene there. And so welcome, everybody. We have Juan, as you guys can see, Juan O'Savin joining us again to reveal what's coming. Coming arrest, preemptive military moving into big cities. So nuclear standoff, like we're talking about. What's mainly on your mind right now, Juan?
Well, of course, I'm here in South Africa. There's a pretty large move here within South Africa to break off in the southwestern portion of the country, away from the ANC-controlled communists, really. Central North Africa region, and so it's actually fairly advanced. they've had almost 1,890 some odd thousand people already vote on whether or not they should, you know, leave the rest of the country and go off on their own. And it's not an official vote. It was more of kind of a, you know, a test within the country about whether or not people should start this secession movement. And the reasons for it are a lot like what America had when we broke off from Britain. The incredibly high taxes that are just destroying the country in many ways. A good example is Goodyear Tire, who has a large facility here in South Africa. They just recently decided to just give up and go away, walk away from hundreds of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure, property, investments like that, and just go away. Mercedes is considering doing something similar, and they just can't function in this environment where the communist government, for example, one of the things that came up in the meeting earlier today with a very well-to-do businessman, he said that in the last year, his electricity costs have gone up 800%. He says it's unsustainable, and so he's got a couple thousand employees, and he's going to have to just fold it. And the ANC people running the country, it's just rife with corruption, payoffs. And remember, what Trump did when the South African president was there in the Oval Office. He was like one of the Harlem Globetrotters. He runs around the ring there in the Oval Office, runs over to the president of South Africa and pantses him to the whole world that are being facilitated here in South Africa. It's almost like it's a free-for-all. And anybody that's working with them or assisting them. And by the way, here in South Africa, one of the things that people need to understand, there's really three different types of people in the way that they see it. They have coloreds, whites, and blacks. So the coloreds, by most of the black population, are considered, essentially white. The blacks are people that they consider that they were here to begin with. They're a smaller portion of the population, say down here in Cape Town. 17% of the population here in Cape Town is white. About 55% of the population is what they called coloreds. And then the remainder is black. And those numbers have gone up because they've done something else. They're bringing people in from East Africa, north and east, down to the Cape area at the southern tip here, and just planting them in these huge shanty villages, literally just built, land that's taken from somebody, and they just start building on it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of these tin-roofed dwellings. The rest of the area is relatively advanced, modern, but they have moved huge population here that's only here during the spring, summer, fall months, and then they go home in what is the hottest part of the year in the summer. They move north back home for Christmas and things like that. And but those groups that are coming down here in that period of time are probably similar to what we would, describe as being a BLM type of a population. A lot of it encouraged by Soros-controlled groups and money, and with the sole purpose of being a threat or a disruptive presence in this region. And the people are literally huge swaths of this region have moved to other parts of the world just in the last couple of months. Of the doctors, scientists, business people, the figure of 21,000 was used just in the last few months of people that have moved to predominantly the United States, but a lot of them to the Caribbean and to Europe to escape what's happening here, what's coming. So, and you have to understand one of
I
the
saw
things
that Trump is looking at maybe 40,000 South Africans coming to America, giving them, bring them here. So that's great.
Well, and let me just say this. So as you move north from the area that I'm in, where the Cape of Hope is what they would, tentatively call their country, and Cape Town and like that. What's interesting about those people that Trump's encouraging, those are the large farm owners that run these huge farms that are being attacked and being moved out of the country. And every day here in the central regions of South Africa, less so where I'm at because the locals won't tolerate it. They have a lot of almost like a militia-like presence of whites and coloreds, and their farms taken over, pushed off their property. So they literally are living in some type of armed camp, trying to hold on to these farms and ranches that have been in their families literally for hundreds of years. When this region was settled by the Dutch, that was about 25, 30 years after America declared its independence. And there was a move earlier that was a pilgrim type movement, established same time as New York was established, same year even, in the 1600s. And they literally had something like what we had with our settlers. They landed here in Cape Town area, and then they began to move out across the country in covered wagons. It was, instead of moving west like we did in America, they moved north and to the east, and they built out these huge swaths of very arid lands, grasses that were really not heavily populated at the time. And then the Brits came in and kind of doubled down on the whole thing. And what started out as kind of a Christian pilgrimage type movement was hijacked and went a different direction with the British here. And so there's kind of this interesting mixed history that went on here. But in many ways, shoot, you go out, they're wearing cowboy hats. It's a cattle country. It's horses. It's an amazing area, and but with a history that, in a lot of ways, is very Americana type stuff, and then with issues that we have similar to our issues back in the States. So, not exactly, but it's an interesting area.
So you're saying East Africans, they're importing them there. Is that Somali, Djibouti? What? I spent time in both those areas. Somali's not good, not a good mix.
No, it's more people out of the nation of South Africa, but from regions that are to the north of the Cape area. The Cape area, is fishing. It's a more developed mining area and things like that. So about 15% of the total land mass of South Africa is in this what they call the Cape region. And it is protected by a fairly defensible mountain chain that there's only certain roads that you can get into this area from. The rest of South Africa to the north. And so the people here and a number of the businessmen have been entertaining this idea of breaking off, in some cases as long as 21 years. And the people represented here today, most of them have been, the movement's been increasing, and a number of the leaders said, they've been involved, a pretty common number was 5-6 years, that it's just taken on a life of its own, and it's become unbearable with what's going on. You have a lot of Americans will understand this. You have about 7% of the country paying 90+% of the taxes. You have about a little over 0.5% of the total population of South Africa paying the taxes to the 95th percentile. So it's the producers, it's the doctors, the attorneys, the business owners, the inventors, all that sort of thing are just getting, they're working to pay taxes. They're not making any money. And just like the electrical, they haven't built any new electrical generation. The nuclear plant that they have here is what it is. It's just that this communist regime keeps adding supervisors to the whole electrical grid system to where it's a carpetbagger type situation. They've got so many people on the payroll that the cost of electricity has gone up 8 times. And it's not more dependable, it's not better serviced, it's all going to graft just to pay people off, and that's what's happening in the industries. And that's why Goodyear literally just said, okay, done, huge operations here, and they've left the country. So there's not much time to do something to pull this back in most of the people's minds. And so it's do you stay and reach that point where there's nothing left to leave with, or do you leave something still in your pocket? And from a very communist mindset, they're just increasing the number of people and the weight on them. It's like in Egypt, all of a sudden Pharaoh says, not only do you have to produce bricks, you're going to have to go out and gather the straw to make the bricks with, which, they were being at least provided the straw to make bricks to, build out Egypt. But all of a sudden then their day was increased. They have to go out and gather the straw and make the bricks. And it became, so they didn't have more time in their hands to make babies or whatever. So that's kind of what's happening here in South Africa. And the people that are carrying the load are looking at a Boston Tea Party type of a situation. When do you finally say enough is enough and stand and fight and stop? And what does fight look like? They don't want to do it with lead. They want to do it with some kind of a pushback on the central government. And one of the billionaires has said publicly that Rob Herzog has said publicly that they're just going to have to, as businessmen in this region, stop sending any money, refuse to send any money to the federal government for taxes, and keep it all here at home. They aren't getting anything back. For every $100 they send, they get about 7 cents back, and most of that is in the form of support for police that are literally, and tax collectors that are literally the ones enforcing that they take everything that they have. So it's all out, nothing to actually handle roads or infrastructure or anything like that. So they've just reached that limit. Now, here's some stuff that a lot of people may not realize. Do you remember, you're just old enough to remember some of the stuff that happened with the nuclear here in South Africa. Did you ever get briefed on any of that movement of nuclear materials and creation of nuclear weapons here in South Africa?
No, I didn't. But over the years, I've worked with a lot of South Africans trackers and breachers and explosive breaching, so forth. Outstanding people. So bringing those very gifted people that are basically producing 90% of the income tax for South Africa to the United States would be magnificent. That would basically that would take. I would love that, and I'm sure they probably would too. I know that, like you said, they fought for that for a long time, but here we are. I don't know how this is going to end for them. This is really.
Well, think of it. Yeah, where's Elon Musk from?
Yeah. Good point.
Okay, and by the way, the babe. She's a kid. Laura Logan. Laura Logan's from South Africa.
No, I didn't know
A number of the people out there that there's quite a few. John B. Wells' wife is from South Africa. So, I know a lot of business people out of South Africa from stuff that we've had to do over the years. But here's the deal on the nuclear. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, it was reported that Israel tested their first nuclear device here in South Africa and coordinated some of the nuclear work that they had with scientists here in South Africa. And by the way, the first heart transplant with an artificial heart was done by a South African doctor.
Wow.
One of the people I was with today, great guy. In fact, we're going out to dinner here in a couple of days with our wives. He's an inventor that has developed an entirely different type of way to get energy from wave action and ocean movement, here in the oceans. Huge amounts of energy that is really something very interesting, cool. I'm aware of a lot of the wave power generation systems, and he has something that's in a whole different category. And so if you use the motion of the ocean's waters and the currents in the ocean's waters to generate electrical power, it changes the dynamics in a lot of places. And of course, here you've got this huge area, a meeting of the South Atlantic and the Indian Ocean here in this area. Whenever the Suez Canal has a problem up in the Mideast, all of the ships divert in just a few hours. Mm-hmm. And within 2-3 days, you go from 44 ships to 40 ships to, you can have 300-400 ships having to go around the horn here if the Mideast has a problem. And so it's actually a pretty critical area. The best deep water port in the southern hemisphere is right here, just a few miles from me, and where you can put carriers and like that. So it has importance for power projection, say for America. Even Elon has speculated that maybe he'll have to move his rocket launch facilities here to South Africa. It's the best place in the world to do launches to orbit using chemical rocket propulsion systems. If you go to the stuff that I'm working on with others, we don't have the same issues. But for the time being, with stuff like Elon's doing, you can put rockets into equatorial orbits, and you can put them into polar orbits from here. And when you're launching, if you're whichever direction you want to go, it's you're not doing it over populated areas where people are, etc. It even beats Diego Garcia up in the Indian Ocean. So for something high tech, the next stage for the world, the next 20, 50, 100 years, this region is going to be extremely crucial. And by the way, the shortest route to the Antarctic and the best route into the Antarctic isn't from where we're currently doing New Zealand, Australia, or from South America down at Chile and Argentina. It's from right here in South Africa. And so there's a lot of angles where this is a pretty crucial area. And but I'll tell you something that in the West, virtually nobody knows this. The ANC was almost completely broke, literally, just a few long months ago. And then a wild thing happened. Russian warship shows up here in the area. All of a sudden, black SUVs and trucks and everything else are showing up middle of the night, and this warship is getting stuff loaded onto it. And then there was, people were asking, what in the world is going on here? What's this deal with Russia going on? Behind the scenes, it was said by insiders that this wasn't about Russia. Russia was just transporting something for Iran. And suddenly the ANC is flush with cash again, and they've got, money for all their friends and buddies, and they're really a mobster, Capone type of an operation. And the speculation is what could possibly have been conveyed that might be going to Iran that will be of any value. Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, South Africa, people don't realize this, they're a nuclear power. South Africa, 25 years ago, was widely acknowledged as having 5 nuclear bombs. What's Iran trying to do? And enough fissile material for 5 nuclear bombs. And it was speculated that they, in fact, had gotten technology to build those bombs. They also have the technology to make the triggers and to update that. And some of that technology came out of Israel. Some of it came out of Russia. What would be the point? I've told this audience that there was a question when Krylov, the Russian general, was killed in the scooter attack in Moscow.
Yep.
What was he tracking? He was trying to track down where the materials and devices were coming from, going to, that would refresh about 200 what they call demolition nukes. They're what we would probably refer to for the most part as a suitcase type nuke. They're a little bit larger than that, but an artillery or tactical type weapon. They're not what we would call city busters that take out miles of an area. They're smaller with the explosion, but can do massive damage, and on par with a little bit bigger than Nagasaki or Hiroshima. And the contention is, and Kurt Weldon, Congressman Kurt Weldon, who was on track to be head of the Armed Services Committee in Congress, 20-year congressional elected representative, up until they did some fraud to take him out of office because he was going to be head of the Armed Services Committee. Very trusted, respected congressman. He went over to Russia at Putin's invitation, early 2000s, I think it was 2005 or 6. And Putin had him meet with his top nuclear people, the directors of the programs for their military nuclear projects. He actually went out and viewed their nuclear stockpile, where key components of it were stored. And at the time he was there in the early 2000s, their scientists told him that they were missing about 200 of these demolition nukes, these small nukes, out of an inventory of about 360, I think it was. And that it was the understanding, although they didn't have records, it was all destroyed intentionally, that Gorbachev had offered all sorts of assistance to Iran at the close of the Soviet Union during the Reagan years in the late 80s. and that he had offered these things to Iran for different technical, legal, military reasons, and that Iran got 200 of these tactical nuclear devices. They weren't like a warhead you'd put on a missile and send somewhere. They were stuff you'd put in a shipping container or truck or something like that. And but most of those were close to dating out, timing out, and would have to have technical work done to refresh them. Those have never been accounted for anywhere in the world. Of course, we were looking for something off the East Coast in the months before the election 2024, or some things, and it came out that they were looking for a nuke or nukes, and they were also mapping all of these areas where those drones were at, so they had kind of a backdrop to compare, because some areas have certain types of emissions, etc., that you might hide a nuke in that area and it'd be hard to see for different reasons with emissions. But the speculation has been here in South Africa and other places that some of that material that may even have been engineered to help with refreshing some of these nukes is what was picked up here in South Africa, and didn't go right back to Russia, and may have gone into Iranian hands. So in this weird moment that we're in, South Africa, that most Americans would be, yeah, whatever, I don't have time for that, it doesn't matter to me, it's other side of the world. In fact, I'm almost exactly on the opposite side of the world from Anchorage, where Trump is. You can stick, right through the earth. I'm about exactly as far away from Trump right now as you can get, physically on the planet. So it's kind of fun. It's that important, though, to America, because at so many different levels, we actually are very similar people with actually a similar history going back to the Pilgrims and Puritans and like that, and then the way that we settled our regions. It's this is a very important part of the world.
Yeah, I mean, even the history, if you look at Michael Tellinger's work, there's ancient stone circles, Tesla technology, ancient gold mines. So there's a long history there in South Africa of, ancient cultures and so forth. But yeah, I think that, we have to wrap up all the nukes. And I think that's what President Trump is really trying to do. He wants to make sure all the world is safe. And there in South Africa, and I know you work in the Congo too, if we bring them a way and ways and means to, produce and, have good trade and so forth, it usually cancels out all this nonsense of war and so forth.
Well, and the problem is with what the ANC is doing, there isn't even a starter where trade could happen. That's why Trump, they came over on a trade mission and were there in the Oval Office like they were going to get a sweet deal. They were going to arm twist Trump, and they were going to get all sorts of sweet deal in exchange for, access to these things. Trump didn't even start the conversation. He just pantsed them right there to the whole world for who they really were, literally. And China's in their back pocket. Soros associations and across South Africa, predominantly up in the farming regions outside of the area that I'm in. Bank to terrorize the rest of the population. So the stories about how and it's done to terrorize the people to try to get them all to leave, and then their farms, ranches, wealth just get absorbed. They don't take anything away with them. And these are people that have been here for, a very long time, settled those regions, built those things. And so that's where the fight is. It would be very akin to people going in and doing something similar across the Midwest, and the rest of the country just watching on while, 100 people a day, 100 people a day. By the way, on proportion, South Africa has a population of about 70 million. The region that I'm in, the total population that we're breaking off is about 7 million. And it's about 15% of the total land mass of South Africa, about 10% of the population. And the main area where I'm at here in Cape Town, within, 25, 30 miles is about 5 million, just a little under. So kind of gives you a mental picture. America's up there at 350. Arguably at over 10%, probably closer to 12 to 14%, depending on who you're asking, is this illegal population that's come in that are not actually U.S. citizens, and but are living in the country, just for scale or proportion. So very important area, though, an amazing area.
Yeah, it's I've looked at that area for a long time. I remember when I was in the SEAL, for early days of SEAL teams, we were talking about Africa quite a bit. It seems to have fallen off, but now it seems to be back on the burner. What is the big push in Africa?
Well, overall in Africa, China. Let me compare. I don't think I've heard anybody say this, but I have an article that I haven't published that I wanted to publish a couple of years ago with the next book, and I probably will publish it here shortly. But England, it said that the sun never set on the British Empire when they were fully in power, and it looks like they're kind of way cut back. The reality is that their strategy that they had for the last 500 years was to control the choke points of commerce around the world, the 7 Seas, if you will. And they did so by controlling the key choke points to the various continents. So when you think of Hong Kong, when you think of Gibraltar as a gate to the Mediterranean, each of these areas, all of China, and the trade comes to Hong Kong, to a central point, and then out to the rest of the world. From a seafaring perspective, you control these sea choke points, and then you control whole regions, whole continents, for the purposes of trade and commerce and like that. Mm-hmm. And so their empire was based around by sea, controlling the movement of goods around the world from these key choke points, 7 key locations around the world. Even now, these Commonwealth countries that they've retained control and work through still heavily control and influence trade across the world. China, which is being run almost like a branch office of the Brits behind the scenes. Hard to get your mind around, but it's actually there from a military side. China's strategy is to similarly own the next 500 years. And so they have been working for quite some time, arguably the last 50, 60 years, to gain control of industries within the raw materials of wealth that come from various places around the world. And they've identified the raw materials that you need for manufacturing to sustain a population, etc. And they've gone to the various parts of the world and tried to control those locations or regions by doing deals, making loans, building things, and then obligating the populations for whatever they've loaned into. And so, for example, in the mining, they have had a steady, very dedicated effort to get into regions where certain types of raw materials, like up in the Congo, you have multiple very rare types of materials that are highly valuable. Um, uh, Cobalt being one of them, other rare earths being in there, and they've gone in and tried to control specific mines, specific locations on the map, and then the countries around them or the politics around them, and in order to have some control over the rest of commerce. They see the future of manufacturing, the most important core material that you have to have in this, the new machinery, the new technology that will dominate, 50, 100 plus years, into the future, related to magnetism, electromagnetic energy transfer and coherency, the rare earth elements we keep hearing all about, but then other minerals that you need for volume. In the Congo, they have a zinc mine, a copper mine, and when that region was captured back just prior to Christmas by people friendly to China, there was about a dozen different countries or groups that were in the Congo doing mischief when the president of the Congo, Tshisekedi, asked for help and said, Trump, you can have everything. You have all the mining, all the minerals in the whole country. Just, help us, save us. And they took over that copper mine. Within a matter of days, the price of copper went up like 30, 40% just because of that one mine at that one strategic location that got taken over by these communist, ISIS, Chinese groups working together that took over that mine that was actually run by an American company. And in the course of what Trump did in pushing back, they were made an offer that they couldn't refuse, and they vacated that area and pulled back. And once it was apparent that was going to happen, then copper prices restabilized somewhat. But that's how, we're in a very tippy area, and small changes in small regions on mining, for example, could change costs and pricing and things like that radically. So China has this objective of controlling, even within their Silken Road idea, the routes of commerce over land to get to Europe, to get to other locations to sell their goods and to do commerce, and to control those routes and then control the key locations for extraction of raw resources. A next generation or generations variation of what the Brits did by controlling the key trade routes and the harbors, the cities, and building them up in those key areas. And by the way, the British way of doing things is divide and conquer. So they'd always have 3 or 4 groups in an area that they would put in close proximity, keep them at each other's throats, and one was always rising up, the other 2 were trying to work it out. As soon as those 2 pick one of the sides that wants to join, then there's a third man out. It's a different one. They keep doing this round stuff, and so you'll go to places where they've been, like Syria or Iraq, and you got 3 different groups there primarily, and they're all constantly fighting each other, and somebody's coming in having to settle it down. It's the same thing here in South Africa with different of the tribal groups, and they're constantly aiding one and tamping down another, and then another one rises up, and they keep doing this roundy round to keep the country from being stable, if you will. Same thing up in Rhodesia. Rhodesia was one of the most stable countries in Africa. It was the Pearl of Africa in its own way. We call Uganda the Pearl of Africa, but Rhodesia was really this amazing area. And then as soon as they declared their statehood, the mischief came in. And from the viewpoint here in South Africa, and one of the people that was here today that I spent quite a bit of time with grew up in Rhodesia and in that whole era, and said, no, there was no question. The people that messed it up, he didn't use that word, he was a bit more flowery, were the Brits. And they wanted it. It suited them for the broader region, what they want. If you wanted to say what is at the heart of a lot of this problem.
Yeah, it seems like
the
the
secret
Brits.
societies out of England as being the core.
Yeah, it seems like the Brits, they like
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
divide and conquer. I had Sheila Holm on a couple of days ago, and we talked about some of this, where the United States has been like the old, British Empire, going in and conquering. You go to World War I, World War II, all around the world, where we come in and conquer, and then we come in and build those countries back up, and we never get the benefit of that. So, and it seems like
They use us like their army, and then it's our blood, our guts, our machinery, our technology, and then they'll sift their way back in to take advantage of it. Yeah.
So it looks like we may be moving in a more higher calling direction, trying to help these countries.
Well, I don't think we can do much to help most of these places right now. America coming in, I will tell you this, here in this area of South Africa, all eyes are on the U.S. and President Trump. And they are praying, wishing, hoping that we could come in and help them against this, group that has hijacked their country. And by the way, just so everybody understands more precisely, elections, the election integrity, it's broadly understood in all these countries across Africa, but especially here in South Africa, that the group that got into power here got in through election fraud. And they were a 0.5% from having a 2/3 vote majority where they could have changed the Constitution. They won power and got into power, 25 years ago and more, 30 years ago. But when they got in, they were just a hair shy of enough to change the Constitution. Had they gotten just that little bit more, everybody here is like, it'd have been the night of the long knives. They'd have been out slaughtering everybody. But they didn't quite have that ability, so they had to work within the law to do a lot of the stuff that they're doing. And they've legislated essentially people out of their houses and homes to steal it all.
Yeah.
And those that are in power right now for their families and like that. And it's just been a transfer of wealth into these groups, the ANC groups that are here. What they're hoping is that the U.S. Somehow helps them to get to even fair elections. See, all the election observers that have come in to certify that the elections are fair here, those election observers themselves keep calling elections fair, and everybody's going, what are you talking about, a fair election? It's insane. You know that they had power outages that conveniently started as soon as the vote's done. A few hours later, they're counting. They have a power outage, and the power doesn't come on till the next afternoon. All of a sudden, the votes are completely changed from where they're going. And people get into power and going, how did that guy win? Nobody even knew his name. It's very clear that they haven't had fair elections here for a very, very long time. And
Yeah,
so
I think going all the way back to Nelson Mandela, there's a lot of people who talk about this, that was basically a captured operation. It wasn't about, overcoming apartheid. It was basically the opposite. So, blacks claim that, the whites were mistreating them. But now the blacks are mistreating the whites. And like you're talking about, the election unintegrity was huge in that time frame. And it looks like it's something that needs to be, fixed around the world.
Well, a lot of the folks, and I had the benefit of having other people from other countries in the region here. They actually, are of a mind, and not just whites, if you will, blacks and coloreds, are in agreement. Hollywood played a huge part in shaping the perceptions of what was really going on, and they're actually very disturbed by the way Hollywood projects out a lot of the information because it doesn't actually fit what actually happened. For example, Mandela, he's worshipped practically in democratic circles and many of the countries out there. But the people here, there's no question in their mind. This is, the people that have followed in his footsteps and what he's done have been in the way that they have moved forward, and they want to have it, claim it's a tit for tat or something like that. Certainly in this region where I'm at, the people here, the ones that want to break away from South Africa amongst the colored community, it's an overwhelming majority. It's in the 90th percentile. Of the blacks, as you would say it here, the number is still over 50% of the population. They don't want anything to do with what's going on further north. It's such a horror and an embarrassment. And so there's quite a bit of unity on how to move forward or what needs to be done. Yeah. But, to think about how we in America, our perceptions of what's going on politically, with Obama wanting to do the Civil War movie, a modern Civil War in America, he and Michael, there's propaganda from Hollywood that's affected the way things are going on here in Africa that do not portray the truth of what's really going on, manipulating world opinion against the people here in South Africa, in this Cape region.
So I saw that one of the generals, McInerney, I believe it was. I saw an interview with him, and he was talking about how they'll probably do some nice, flyovers with F-35s and all kind of stuff. And I just saw that, yeah, they do have B-2s and F-35s are flying overhead, with the Trump-Putin meeting right now. So I know you have talked about this, and it's almost came to pass a few times about this nuclear standoff. Where do you see that going?
Well, the reason that I've mentioned it is because in America, the shadow government that is the elephant in the room that Cheney talked about, the shadow government really is senior executive service. And senior executive service claims that their mandate, of course, you can go on the Wikipedia, read about senior executive service. Their mission statement is that they provide continuity in government between elected administrations. The continuity that, say, a politician is a 2-year representative or a 4 or 6 year term of office, a lot of these things play out over decades. And so they claim the right to have some control and decisions. They're the ultimate deep state. Politicians come and go, but they keep things on an even keel and make the long-term decisions, enforce longer-term objectives, etc. So they claim the authority to decide when and how to use nuclear weapons if there's problems in elected government and doing that effectively, precisely. Now I'm talking behind the scenes, not what's said within the public side. When Trump left office after his first term, those authorities were not turned over to Biden. And that's something that people will be arguing and debating over decades to come. I'm just telling you it didn't happen. When Trump left the White House on January 20th, 2021, he was still president. When he got on the helicopter, he was still president. When he got on Air Force One, he was still president and commander-in-chief when he landed in Florida and went all the way to Mar-a-Lago. And so the briefcase traveled with him and has to be within 2 doors of the president at all times. And when Biden on another unit was read in, he did not have the codes. The biscuit wasn't passed to him. He was recognized as the elected president of the United States, with some questions over the legitimacy of that election. And there was a military review done for 50 days, 45 plus 5 days between the services afterwards. And never did Biden have his finger on the nuclear key and anything would have happened. He might have been able to push the button, but it would not have been recognized at the launch control locations. And so the question is, who had that authority? Because Trump never handed off the baton, because of things that happened in the 50s as nuclear systems came online and the 54 code, in the way that power is passed, the idea being that, you could have space aliens, you could have doppelgangers, situations existed where there may be some question as to whether or not the person even, purporting to be the president was truly the real person. Sci-fi movies and things like that, there were certain protocols put in place that did not allow that Trump could convey those authorities. When they invaded Mar-a-Lago and went through everything and turned everything upside down, what were they looking for? Some said the Blue Book, which had all of the stuff from Crossfire Hurricane. Others, some pages on nuclear secrets that were, related to other countries that Trump shouldn't have. The reality is they were looking for the biscuit. And Trump actually told you that last summer during the campaign. When somebody raised something, he says, "What, you think I was going to leave the nuclear launch codes in a teenager's video game drawer? Are you kidding me?" Referring to Hunter, to Barron. He told you what they were looking for. They were looking for the launch codes for the biscuit. And then, of course, Trump, the biscuit has to be on your physical body, person, or within arm's reach at all times. The president, commander-in-chief, could not hand the biscuit off to Melania, couldn't hand it off to the head of his security detail, Secret Service. He couldn't give it or convey it to anyone. Had to be on his physical body or within arm's reach at all times. And can't be conveyed to anybody. And so what I've told your audience and others is that what Trump did, he declared national emergency March 13th, 2020. March 15th of 2020, went to Cheyenne Mountain, did a walkthrough, the underground nuclear base in the mountain there in Colorado. And then at the conclusion of it, he sealed up the base. There's all sorts of stuff where, yes, the outer door is open, but the inner door isn't. They've continued to maintain the base in a lockdown condition internally. It's classified, all the stuff related to it. You know, a bunch of people, I know Bifford, I've been there, have you been there, blah, whatever. The short version is the only place the biscuit could be other than the president's person or within arm's reach is where the codes already existed on the other half at Cheyenne Mountain. He turned those in there, and then those codes were locked in place. They were never changed. Trump memorized the biscuit, everything in there. And that's why after Trump left office in 2021, a couple months later, he had this medical check where they also tested his memory, and he aced everything, including his memory. What was that for? For the benefit of the people in the mountain. He hasn't forgotten anything. He knows all the codes, and he's the de facto authority should there be a nuclear emergency. In the case of a nuclear emergency, like what happened in Hawaii, if a lot of people have forgotten this, you had a message went out on cell phones, and the sirens went off all over Hawaii. And on the cell phones, the message was a missile launch has been detected. Intercontinental ballistic missile launch has been detected and is headed for Hawaii. So everybody bend over, kiss your ass goodbye. You know, people for an hour were believing that a nuclear bomb was headed for Hawaii, going to blow up, probably in Pearl Harbor. And it was very traumatizing for everybody in Hawaii. That was, especially as you got closer to that location. Although there's locations on other the islands that could be hit, Maui being one of them precisely. And but in reality, how many nuclear bombs blew up in Hawaii that day? None. The alarms went off just before an hour had gone by. Said some guy bumped a light switch with his elbow in an office he'd worked in for years and accidentally turned on the alarms, and the codes went out to the cell phones. Complete, total rubbish bullshit. But what else happened during that time period? All of the computer systems, including military systems and federal three-letter agency systems that monitor communications across Asia into China, all of the South Pacific region. All of those servers, all of those computer systems on an emergency basis scrammed. They went into an emergency mode and turned off other functions and began sending all the data they had in their data banks back to the mainland. And it was stored in computers within the NORAD system. That was done twice, so that any information that developed even after this launch announcement was also sent, plus also a guarantee if there was anything that didn't go through right. And one of the key features there is that the assumption when everything was downloaded, because it's believed, you know, that Hawaii could be destroyed, key systems could be destroyed in a nuclear attack. So that data, which would be critical to, you know, for mounting a defense, to doing offense, military, anything, is back at the mainland. But it's assumed that maybe like SAP programs, special access projects, where only a handful of people or even just one person may have the access to information storage activities, etc. That information, yet it could have critical national security information that we need as a country to have. So in this download, the access codes go with the information when it scrams. So imagine that projects that are completely isolated, top secret, nobody's supposed to know about it, those programs, the access codes to access that information are sent with it. Now, if you have something that happened in the mainland across the rest of America with a nuclear attack, the systems all through the federal system, including military and defense, and the spy systems, intelligence, etc., they would also scram to protect that information, and it would go into the NORAD security system and data system with the access codes. Look at what's going on right now with all these special projects that are being revealed that the intelligence people, Brennan and others, were all involved in. Comey running secret operations at FBI. Do they have data? Do they have programs? Do they have information that is secreted? And if you get into a nuclear emergency, you might not have missiles go off in America, but the context is that it could be happening, and those systems would download. When Trump sealed everything up on March 15th, 2020, that's never been unlocked since. So the codes are all still in place, and it could scram and we'd have access to everything, and that's part of the question.